Okay guys, and welcome to this video on Perfect Competition paper 3, which is the third video in the mini-series on Unit 1.5 from what is soon to be the old course. Now let's get straight to the questions. Okay, so what we actually have here is a scenario with a graph, and it says the price of tea in a perfectly competitive tea market is presently $21 per can. We're given this information here about the firm, and we're saying using this information, and on figure 2, draw and label the average revenue curve. So like I always say, you got to draw this stuff with pencil in the exam, but I'm using pen just so it'll come up easy in the camera. And we know that it's perfectly competitive. We're told that in the question, and it has an average revenue curve of 21. Okay, so what that actually means is, I'm just going to try and line up my pen and ruler properly. Okay, something like that. So what that actually means is its demand curve is perfectly elastic along the price of 21. So we're going to write this here. So price equals average revenue equals marginal revenue equals the demand curve. Okay, you really keep that in mind, guys. Well done. Okay, now using figure 2, identify the quantity of cans per month firm B must produce in order to maximize profits. Well, also we know from our studies that profit maximization in the previous videos, profit maximization occurs where MC equals M or. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go down here and kind of drop it there, something like that. Now, to me, what does that look at? Something like 105 or something like that. So yeah, we'll go with that. Maybe 106, but I'm going to go 105 just because I haven't drawn it, because I'm not drawing with the sharp pencil. Okay, so using figure 2, identify the quantity of cans per month firm B must produce in order to maximize profits. Excuse me, I've done that. That's 105. Okay, and then calculate the economic profit when firm B is producing at the level marked in part 2. So if I bring this up here just so you can see everything, and what we've got, and I'll actually just mark it, I'll write out the answers for you now in a second, but what we've got now is profit maximization occurs at that quantity where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, and profit maximization occurs at 105. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write down profit, and this is one of many different formulae you can use, and you'll be exposed to all of these throughout the number of videos. Okay, so profit is quantity multiplied average revenue times minus average total cost. So the first thing is, okay, so we've got our profit maximizing quantity, we've got our average revenue, but we don't have our average cost. So what I'm going to do now is at that I'm going to go up to the continue on up here and go across as neatly as I can. Okay, and I think that's 23. Okay, very, very good. Now, don't forget what our average revenue is our price. Okay, so always keep that in mind, guys, and this is minus 23. Okay, so that means that our profit is 105 multiplied by minus 2, which equals minus 210. So what we're actually saying here is the firm suffers a loss of $210. Okay, and just to remember, price equals A or. So what I could have done here, instead of writing this, I could have written this, which is Q times P minus average total costs. Okay, and don't forget average total cost changes as quantity changes. Okay, so again, I hope that makes sense, and you know, I hope that's something now that's becoming more and more obvious to you guys as we go through this stuff. Okay, so well done. Now, the next thing here is up to this one, question 1C. Sometimes a firm continues to produce in the short run, even when it's making an economic loss. Explain why a firm might choose to do this. Well, in the short run, a firm should continue to produce, provided price, which is we've already said is AOR, is greater than average variable cost. Now, not greater than average total cost, like we saw there. They're making a loss in the previous example, but they're continuing to produce. The answer is why. And since it is making a contribution by having a price that is greater than its average variable cost, it's making a contribution to its other type of costs, which are fixed costs. So in so doing, the firm's losses are less than if they didn't open at all. They're less than the fixed costs, because the fixed costs would have to be paid whether they opened or not. As such, its losses would be greater if it shut down. Okay? Now, we're not talking about the long term. The long term, you have to cover all costs. We're just saying, like, if they're like, will I open today or not? Well, if they believe that they can cover their average variable cost, they're better off opening, because their losses would be less than if they didn't open. Because now they're making some contribution to the fixed cost because they opened, and they're earning more than their average variable cost. But if they'd shut down, they'd have to pay all of their fixed costs without any contribution from the day's operation. Okay? Now, outline why a perfectly competitive firm is a price taker. Now, if a perfectly competitive firm raises its price, both its quantity sold and revenue will fall to zero. Okay? Now, why? Because they're selling a homogeneous good and there's loads and loads of other competitors or suppliers. So if I raise my price by a cent, well, then everyone's just, well, I'm just going to go to your other 50 competitors just on this street. So why would I buy off you? So everyone just switches away. They will not lower their price as there is no, so that's the reason why they don't increase their price. And they will not lower their price as there is no benefit in so doing, because a perfectly competitive firm can sell any amount at the market price. Now, as we see, they won't, because it's MC equals MR is the profit maximizing condition. All I'm saying is they can, so they have no incentive to lower their price. Okay, now, firm B and all other firms, and this is how you move from perfectly competitive to monopolistically competitive. Firm B and all other firms in the tea market begin to sell their tea in distinctive packaging. So now they're like, it's no longer homogeneous goods. Because of product differentiation, they've changed the mindset of consumers to think that this is different. Okay, you're not just buying bananas anymore, you're buying 5 bananas. They're the good bananas, even though I'm sure you couldn't tell a 5 banana from any other type. Okay, and many differentiate their product with organic tea or fruit flavors. It's not homogeneous anymore. Therefore, you've got a downward slope in demand curve. You've got some form of market power. Explain how the demand curve faced by firm B will change the result. The demand curve will slope downwards now, now that the firm has market power. And why does it have market power? Because it's not homogeneous good anymore. It's not identical to its competitors in the minds of consumers, and they're the ones you have to convince. Okay, so people are like, oh no, that's the good tea, those are the good bananas, they're the good oranges, you know, so I buy them. So now they're like, okay, we can raise price and quantity demand, it won't fall to zero. We've got market power, because people don't think that all other substitutes are perfect substitutes. They're not homogeneous. There's difference. So with this difference, there's brand loyalty, and brand loyalty breeds the ability to increase price without quantity demanded falling to zero. Okay, so let me start again. The demand curve will slope downwards as now the firm has market power and hence the ability to increase price without quantity demanded falling to zero. It now has the ability to be a price maker. Just a nice little add-on there at the end. Okay, now if we look up here, we've got firm A with a firm with monopoly power, okay, is producing at a level of output Q equal to 150,000 units per month. Okay, so we've got to remember that one as well, guys. Okay, now, for which the following are true and all figures are in dollars. Okay, so we've got the average revenue, which is the same as the price, so that's 140 each. Okay, it's the same thing. Marginal revenue, which is the amount of extra revenue earned when the firm sells one extra unit of output, which is 80. Average cost is the cost per unit of output produced, which is 60. And the marginal cost is the cost of producing one extra unit of output. Okay, define the term monopoly power. All monopoly power is the ability of a firm to increase its price without quantity demanded falling to zero. What that means is they have a downward sloping demand curve. And the sharper it is downward sloping, the steeper it is, the more inelastic the demand for that good is. And how do you get that? Well, one way you get that is through brand loyalty. Okay, that's one way you get that. Now, it's not the only way. Now, we've got two. Okay, excellent. Excellent. Okay, so using this relationship here, which price equals average revenue is the same thing, which is greater than marginal revenue, which is greater than average cost, which is greater than marginal cost, and or figures provided, explain why allocative efficiency is achieved in the absence of externalities at a level of output where price or average revenue is equal to marginal cost, not what's happening here. Okay, this is not allocatively efficient. So, as long as price is greater than marginal cost, right, keep that in mind, output should continue to increase. Well, why? Well, price is the marginal benefit that consumer receives when they buy that good. Okay, so it should, and the marginal cost is how much it costs to society in the absence of externalities. So what we're saying is that output should increase until marginal benefit equals marginal cost. Because right now marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, and society would be better off in terms of total surplus if output were increased, because that would cause the marginal benefit to fall, the marginal cost to rise, they would meet, and then there's extra total surplus. So as a result of increasing production until marginal benefit equals marginal cost, or until price equals marginal cost, which is marginal benefit to the consumer, as a result of this increase in output, social community surplus will be increased. This ensures that all units valued more by society than they cost to produce are produced. What do I mean by that? Well, how much do you value something? Your willingness to pay. As long as you're willing to pay the price, you value it at least that, maybe even more. So we should continue to increase output, which would cause the marginal benefit to fall, cause the marginal cost to rise, and we should continue to increase output until the two are equal, because there are extra gains from extra trades that society could benefit from that aren't taking place. Okay? Now, I have said all that, yeah. So up until the point where price equals marginal cost, that's what output should be increased to for the last unit produced. Okay, so we want all the mutually beneficial trades that can take place to take place. Now, I suppose I'll just show you the diagram first. The reason that I'm putting this in is to show you that it's not perfect competition more than anything else, okay? So there's a diagram, downward sloping demand curve, downward sloping marginal revenue curve, a marginal revenue curve below the demand curve, means I have to drop price in order to sell more, which means the demand curve is downward sloping, all this kind of stuff, right? So we're just understanding the theory behind this. And it says, identify whether this firm is in perfect competition. You must give a reason for your choice. So I'm trying to show you as much of both as I can. Okay, the firm is not in perfect competition. It is not. Okay, now how do we know that? The reason being is that it faces a downward sloping demand curve with marginal revenue below average revenue. The marginal revenue below average revenue is what causes the demand curve to be downward sloping. And if we have a downward sloping demand curve, that means that we can't have a perfectly elastic one, and as such, we're not in perfect competition, because perfectly competitive firms are price takers, and hence, because of huge amount of alternative sellers selling homogeneous goods, and because of that, they have a perfectly elastic demand curve. Explain the meaning of the term allocative efficiency and its implication for social or community surplus. Well, again, the only market structure that doesn't exhibit market failure is perfect competition, because as soon as you get towards downward sloping demand curves, then you're never really going to be allocatively efficient or productively efficient. This is kind of the idea, right? Because MC will cross M or well before you reach the allocative or the productive efficient one. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by both of those now. Allocative efficiency means that society's scarce resources are allocated in the best possible way, and as a result, just the right amount of the good is produced from society's point of view, so that social surplus, which is the addition of consumer and producer surplus, is maximized. So if you continue to produce up to the point where P equals MC, where the marginal benefit to society is equal to the marginal cost to society, okay, don't forget that there's no externalities, well then you're going to have an allocatively efficient outcome, all right? And that would mean that you're was allocating hence the name, the correct amount of resources, factors of production to make this good. All right. Now the next one is, what is productive efficiency? Well, productive efficiency is essentially looking at the firm's costs. And the firm is trying to produce these goods in order to maximize profits. But part of maximizing profits is being efficient. And what's the definition of efficiency? The minimum point of the average cost curve. That's it. That means on average you are using the least of society's scarce resources that you could possibly use to produce each unit of your good. So productive efficiency occurs when the firm produces that quantity of output where average total costs are at a minimum. Okay, well, what is that quantity? Well, that's the quantity of output. So productive efficiency occurs at the quantity where average total cost equals marginal cost. And again, in the previous video, I went through the diagram for that. And so there's no massive need to replicate it here. Okay, very good. Moving on, guys, nearly there. Now, the next thing we've got here is, yes, you can see that luckily enough. The following diagram illustrates the average cost and marginal cost curves for firm A, which operate in a perfectly competitive market. As a price taker, firm A charges the market price of $18. So what we've got to do is, they're a price taker, they're perfectly competitive. They are facing near infinite numbers of competitors selling a homogeneous good. That means that they have a perfectly elastic demand curve. And that means that all of these four things here on the right are true. Okay, so on the diagram, draw and label, and I have done that. Okay, now, very good. Calculate firm A's total revenue if it produces 180,000 units per month. Right, well, the thing is, usually you'd have to say, okay, we have to go up to the demand curve, but the demand curve is perfectly elastic. So we actually don't have to go up to the demand curve because we know the price they're going to charge is $18. So what we've got here now is this this formula, which we've seen a number of times, luckily now. So total revenue equals price by quantity. Well, it's $18 because it's a price taker, multiplied by 180, 1, 2, 3. So total revenue, therefore, equals, and I have this worked out earlier, 3,240,000. Okay, and that's 3.24 million. That's how much revenue they would earn if they produced 180,000 units per month. Okay, I hope again you can see that, and I hope that makes sense, guys. Now, on to this one. Okay, well, I better keep this close, but anyway, now, identify firm A's short-run profit maximizing level of output. Right, I can straight away identify that because we know exactly where that occurs. For every firm in every market structure, the profit maximizing level of output occurs where MC equals M or. This is M or, that says M or there, marginal revenue. This is the marginal revenue curve as well as the demand curve. And this is the marginal cost curve. They cross here. From that point we go down and we say that's the quantity. Okay, now, that's the profit maximizing quantity. Okay, so the profit maximizing level of output, and I'm happy to repeat it, occurs at that quantity where MC equals M or marginal cost equals marginal revenue. MC equals M or at quantity 140,000 units, and just to show here, that's what we've done. Okay, that's what we've done. That's the quantity which maximizes total revenue. Profit. Maximizes profit, excuse me. Calculate firm A's short-run abnormal profit or loss at the level of output identified in part 3. Okay, well, what we've got now is total revenue, okay, equals price, which is A or times quantity, exact same thing. So I've got $18 multiplied by 140,000 units. I work that out to be 2,000,000 520,000. Okay, now let's have a look at this. Total cost, okay, so we've got the total revenue part, we have to find the total cost part. Total cost equals average total cost times quantity. Well, again, we've got to go back here, and what we are saying is that at this quantity, this profit maximizing quantity of 140,000 per month, how do we know that? Because it's the quantity that's below where MC equals M or. Well, then from that quantity, we go up to the price, but the price is always going to be 18. And then from that quantity, that would tell us, we go up to the demand curve, and the demand curve will tell us the price, but because it's perfectly elastic, it's always going to be 18. Now, from this here, and I hope I'm doing it right. Let me see. Yeah, I am, thank God. All right. So if we go across here from this, okay, because I'm always, never do it in pen, guys. Never, never, never. All right, I believe that's 14. Okay, so the average cost per good, if we're making 140,000 per month, is on average $14 per good. Okay, so therefore, what we've got to do is we've got to write down the average total cost. We've just worked out that is 14 multiplied by 140,000 units. Because if each one costs 14 and we're making 140,000 units, we have to multiply the two by each other, and we get 1,960,000. So therefore, our profit now is our total revenue, which is 2.52 million, minus our total cost, which is just up there, which is 1960123, and I worked that out as an economic profit, an abnormal profit, a supernormal profit of 560,000. Now, I promise you, given the data that was there, there is no other quantity which would bring about a higher level of profit than 560,000, then the quantity that occurs where MC equals M or. With reference to the diagram, identify the long-run equilibrium and level of output for firm A. Now, this is very, very important, guys, and I love these kind of questions, okay? Well, I'll explain why this is so, but what I want you to see now is that there's no barriers to entry in perfect competition. So supernormal profit or abnormal profit would cause other firms to enter. Right, that would increase the market supply, and which would lower the price that they could charge. And that price lowering, that entering into the market, would continue until only normal profits, which we defined in the previous video, would be earned. Okay, so we've got P2 equals A or 2 equals M or 2 equals D2. All right, now they're still profit maximizers. So they're going to be producing that quantity where MC equals M or. Well, this is the MC curve. This is the M or curve. So we go down here and we say 1, 2, 3, 4. Excuse me, the equilibrium price is going to be $12 per good. They're going to stop entering them because they're only earning normal profit, okay, which means they're earning the amount that they could earn in their next best alternative employment, and they're getting 120,000, they're making 120,000 units. Okay, so the long run equilibrium for a perfectly competitive firm occurs at the quantity where MC equals M or equals AC equals A or. Well, let's check that. Okay, let's have a look at this. All right, so, and let's ask, is it allocatively efficient in the long run only? Oh, well, we can do both. Allocatively and productively efficient. Okay, so we've got the M or curve, we've got the MC, they meet at this point right here. The AC curve, right, at this quantity, boom, we're touching that there, and the A or curve is this also, so all four curves meet at that point there. Okay, now, is this productively efficient? Are they producing at the minimum point of the average cost curve? And the answer is yes, because it's where MC crosses AC. So that's productively efficient. So they're producing each good at the lowest possible cost using the least possible scarce resources that they could. Okay, now obviously it'd be better if the average cost curve was down there and they were producing there, but this is, given their constraints, they're producing as well as they can. And like economics, like in teaching, we always reward effort. And I suppose the second of four questions is that, is it allocatively efficient? Well, is price equal to marginal cost? Well, price is equal to 12, and at this quantity we go up to the marginal cost and go straight across, and yes, we're at 12 here. So it is allocatively efficient and it is productively efficient. It is neither of those things. Well, that's not true. It is not productively efficient when it comes to the short run, which is here, because it's not producing there, but it is allocatively efficient and the price does equal the marginal cost. Okay, now let's make sure that I've said everything, and I think I can, and I have. And where are we now? Yes, good. Okay, excellent. Now this is another thing. Explain using the diagram how firm A will move from the short run equilibrium to the long run. Right, how will they go from producing 140,000 a month at $18 each to producing only 120 a month at $12 each? Well, what I want you to understand is, and I will explain this, that this depends on the market equilibrium. Okay, so the existence of abnormal profits, supernormal profits of 650,000, or was it that? No, it wasn't 650. What was it? 560. Excuse. 560. Okay, forgive me for that. All right, 560,000 in the short run will attract new firms into the industry. The entry of new firms will cause the market supply to increase, which is an outward shift, and consequently the market price to fall. This will continue to happen until profits are competed away. Thus, this occurs at price of $12. Guys, thank you so much. I really hope that helps, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.